Okay, so let's take a look at number one. I know we did number one in class, but let's just analyze it again. So we have Alka-Seltzer tablets, they're fizzing in water. There is going to be a change because of the fact that we know that is changing from a one substance to a new substance because your key word there is fizzing, and that supports that it is a chemical versus a physical property. Okay, and we'll leave this last box open because it is not describing a property but a change. Formation of an acid, precipitation. So remember, precipitation is that fancy word that we call a solid when a solid is made. So that means there's a change. Something new is being formed. A new phase of matter is being formed. And this is going to be a chemical property because we have a new substance being made. And we leave the last box open. Melting of a snowball. This is a change because we're changing our matter, specifically a phase of matter. We are going from a solid to a liquid. So this is going to be a physical change that's occurring. All that we're looking at is our water molecules are getting further apart. Okay. We're not changing the makeup. We still have H2O, we still have water. And then our last box is going to be open. Boiling point. Boiling point is very specific for substances, so that's why it's a property. It's a physical property because it's physically describing your substance or IDing or classifying. And if it's a property, you have to identify as intensive or extensive. So remember, intensive is identifying or classifying your matter. Extensive is dealing with how much you have: length, mass, weight, volume. So since this isn't talking about a quantity, it's intensive. Density is also a property because it's describing your matter or classifying your matter. It is physical and it's intensive because it's not describing how much you have, but a specific characteristic. Density is unique for each substance. Glass of ice water sweating on a hot day. This is a change. We're looking at a change in matter where we're going from a gas to a liquid. It's condensing. And this is going to be a physical change because of the fact that we're not changing our water molecules. They're just getting closer together as they cool and condense. And we'll leave the last box open. Haircut. This is a change. Definitely, anytime we get a haircut, we got a change that's occurring there. But it's a physical change because we're not changing the property of your hair. We're just cutting it, we're changing its shape. So we're going to leave our last box open. Color. Remember, I said color was like describing the poster, it was blue and white. So this is a property because we're describing, IDing the matter. It's physical because we can physically describe it, use our senses, and it's intensive because it classifies or identifies it. Flammability. Flammability is going to be looking at, well, what is the potential? Can it catch fire? So this is a property. Specifically, it's going to be chemical because we're talking about it changing into a new substance. And it's intensive because we're describing, can it catch fire? Can it not? Because not all substances are flammable. Texture. Texture is a property because we're describing our matter. It is a physical property because, again, it's describing or classifying and it's intensive. Dry ice clouding a stage. So, what that means is dry ice goes from a solid to a gas, it skips the liquid phase altogether. So, this is a change. And it's a physical change because of the fact that we're changing our phases of matter. We still have CO2. CO2 is the gas that makes up dry ice. We're just changing our distance of our molecules. And it's the last box is going to be open. Malleability is describing a property because we're talking about how we can change its shape, but it's a property that we're describing that it can change. It's physical and it's going to be intensive because metals are going to be malleable. Striking a match, this is change because we're going from one substance to another substance, and it is going to be chemical because a new substance is being made. Now, if we go back up to the malleability, even though we're changing the shape, we're not changing really the matter. We're talking about the aluminum, so that's why it's that property. Melting point is also a property because it's specific to matter. Like we know water is going to melt at 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius, so that's a property. It's physical because we can physically describe it, and it's intensive. Combustibility, can it catch fire? So that's a property because we're describing its ability. It's chemical because if it does catch fire, we can change it to a new substance. And that is intensive because we're not talking about how much we have, but classifying it, describing it. Acidity or pH. This is one that you may not be familiar with. Remember, in nature, we can classify substances as acids, bases, or neutral. So, acidity is a property, it's chemical, and it's intensive. I won't have acidity on an assessment because we haven't really jumped or delved deep into it. So I'm not going to take too much more time describing it. Volume is a property because we can describe, like if I have a liter bottle versus a can, that's just describing how much I have. So that's why it's a property. It's physical, and that one is extensive because it deals with how much I have of that substance. Blue in appearance is a property because it's not saying it's changing, we're just saying it has a blue appearance. It's physical and it's intensive. Food digesting, this is a change because we're changing that food into energy for our body, ATP. And it's chemical because it's changing, and we leave the last box open. And the last one, water steaming from a teapot. That's a change because it's a phase change. We're not changing the water, it's still H2O, just the distance your molecules are from each other. So it's physical, and we leave the last one open.